There is a really good player in our academy. His name is Michael Porter Jr. Michael had a game where he came out and he had a very impressive play. And a fan captured it on video. A fan Michael had never met. And after the game, he came up to Michael and said, "Hey, you know, I captured this video. Do you want it?" Michael said, "Sure." He posted it on Vine. 2 hours later, it was the center of discussion in the sports world. It made #1 on the top 10. I'd like to run the clip.
High school basketball phenom Michael Porter Jr. with a possible dunk of the year there. Takes off one step inside the free throw line.
Wow.
He's a 5-star sophomore, according to ESPN, from Missouri. Wow.
So I have a high level of empathy for athletes in Michael's position, because here's the thing. All they did was got really good at their sport. Everyone around it, they start to change, right? So it's hard for them to process through, and I'm just going to show you a couple of things that have changed for Michael since that event. And just think about this. For a 15, 16-year-old male, opposing teams are waiting outside his locker room to get pictures with him. So think about how confusing that could be, okay? Now, to the men in the room, think about how you were when you were 15 and 16. Imagine if this stuff starts happening, right? And it was prom season just a little while ago, and what was the message on Twitter? It was, if I can get this many retweets, will you go to prom with me? Okay? So just think about processing through that. And then this one, I don't even know what to do with this one. A teacher from another school addressed their class and said, "Anybody that can get me Michael Porter Jr.'s autograph tonight at the game will get extra credit." Like, where do you even start with that one? Like, you can talk about how there's academic standings that are, you're boosting that with something not really, like, and they're educating younger people. Think about that. And that's their message. So what I'd like to do is, in just a few moments, I'm going to bring out Michael's father. And what I'd like you guys to do before I bring them out, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I want you to think about them. What do you want your child to get out of the sport experience? I'd like you to actually write that down. What do you want your child to get out of the sport experience? And then the second question I'd like you to answer is, what do you think your role as the parent should be? First question, what do you want your child to get out of the sport experience? Second question, what should your role as the parent be? I'll give you guys 3 minutes and we'll bring Michael out. How you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while. You know why I haven't seen him in a while? He has 8 children.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of challenges that come with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about your oldest 2.
Well, my oldest 2 daughters are also players at Missouri, so I get to coach them too, along with some pretty cool people right here in the front row on our staff. So we have 8 children. My 2 daughters are freshmen and sophomore at Missouri. And then Michael, who we're going to talk about here in a second. And then his younger brother is actually the Nike Elite 100 today, starting here at SLU.
Talk about how tall they are. I think that would be really interesting, Laura. This is crazy. Yeah. Talk about how tall your wife is.
Yeah, yeah.
How tall is she?
My wife's 6'4.5" or so. Yeah. She's
They're giving applause for that.
Yeah.
Hey, and you know what's really interesting about your wife? How many points did she average a game in high school?
So, junior year, 44 a game. And senior year, 55 or 58, something like that.
So, like, it's perfect for Michael because he's never going to eclipse that number. Let me ask you this. So I asked you guys to think about the 2 questions, how you would answer those. So I'm going to pose that question to Michael Sr. How would you answer that question?
Well, we believe, obviously, that sports is a microcosm of life. And in sport, you face many situations and adversity similar to what you face in the real world. And so what we as a family would hope that our children would get from playing sports, first of all, self-awareness. going through adversity, how do I respond? Learning yourself that way and then making the adjustments that you need to make. Second thing, and I think this is most important, and they've been talking about it all morning, is character development. None of us are perfect, and especially when we're young and we're learning, we don't always respond to adversity, teammates, coaches the right way. That's a big part of what I want my children to get out of sports, is how to respond correctly in each situation.
And it's interesting because I would imagine a lot of you put down something that comes back to character development, right? And so my question to you would be, what do you feel like your role should be as the parent to ensure that the character development is happening?
Yeah, because character development is number one for us, and this isn't for every parent, but for us, I feel like my role should be to make sure the environment that I'm putting my kid in is going to reinforce what we're talking about at home and just our general philosophy in terms of the role sports should play in your life and what it should accomplish for you. So, yeah, I think definitely parents should be involved in getting their kids in the right situation and holding coaches accountable when they see it getting off the rails a little bit, in youth sports especially.
Well, we can stay there for a second, actually. So when you have a kid as talented as Mike, it's advantageous for that coach to have him on the team, right? Because that brings a lot of recognition to that team. And so sometimes coaches might not necessarily say what they should in fear of losing him, but your message to the coach is?
It is so funny. This just happened 2 weeks ago with my son, John Tay. John Tay got a foul call on him and had to get taken out of the game. And he's walking off the sideline, and the coach walks up to him to give him 5. And he gave him the little soft, limp wrist, I don't want to come out of the game handshake. And I was sitting behind the bench, and during a little bit of a lull in play, I went up to the coach. I said, hey, man, you cannot let him get away with that. You can't let him get away with not respecting you. And again, that might be helicopter parent in the house. But
at least he's aware, right?
Yeah, I just, for our kids, man, and Brett helped me with this term. What Lisa and I watch is the action between the action. What is happening in between plays? Are you acknowledging your teammates? Are you giving your coach eye contact as you come out of the game? Are you, high-fiving your teammates? Your body language. Those are the things that we talk to our kids about a lot, probably even more so than on the court stuff.
And my challenge to you guys to think about would be this: after or any time you're talking about the sport experience, what % of the time are you addressing your child as a person versus as a player? And how would you answer that question?
I would say the ratio between talking to our kids as athletes versus character, I don't want to say traits, what was the word?
Skills.
Character skills.
Carol Dweck would be happier now.
Right. We talk about that, I would say 50 to 75% more than we do actual skill stuff, technical basketball stuff. So.
And it's interesting because we actually asked the parents in our academy this question, and a lot of times when you're talking about the sport, you naturally go to them as a player. And so their percentages are 80 to 20 player to person ratio. And we try and actually reverse that. And I know you're with a lot of the elite athletes on the male side in the youth space. Talk to me. I mean, it's really hard to maintain your sense of identity when everyone is like, talk about some of the things that you struggle with there.
Well, the toughest thing, especially for guys Michael and John Tay's age, is that their peers hold a lot of power in their lives. And so what their friends think of them is huge, sometimes more so than what their parents think. And so they get, again, young guys here, a lot of their identity and a lot of their feeling good about themselves from their boys telling them how great they're playing, or from reading rankings, or, getting a text from some cute chick on Twitter or whatever, So, and it's tough, man. It's tough to give a 16-year-old, a 40-something-year-old man's perspective on it, and that's where the struggle is, because I mean, I remember what it was like to be 16, but I don't think like a 16-year-old anymore. And he's only ever been 16. He can't think the way I think. He's not there yet. And so that's where at least in my house, that's where the battle is, to help him see the perspective.
And I think they do a great job in showing patience. And some of the things I think is really cool. You want to just kind of talk about some of these, like they're really good with this stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I said to Brett when we were preparing for this is that for us and for him and all our kids, really, home base has to stay home base. We can't change. No matter what happens with their recruitment, no matter what happens with their fame and notoriety, home has to be the same. We cannot get caught up in it because then they will lose all sense of moral compass and perspective and grounding. And so, yeah, part of the way we help them stay grounded is that, those dudes, they got to do chores around the house and, dude is 6'9", but he washes dishes and loads them in the dishwasher. And
talk about, this is the action between the action. Can you be a little bit more specific on what you mean by that?
Yeah, when Michael was a younger player, freshman year, he was a sophomore this year, he was very, very, very fixated on himself and his performance in games. And so he's just very myopic in his perspective. And so something cool would happen for another teammate, he wouldn't really celebrate. His team would win or whatever. He was just kind of to himself, and he would, again, the little limp wrist 5 and everything. He wasn't really putting his whole heart into his teammates, and he wasn't being others-centered, which is something that we try to teach in our house too. And this picture up here, we've been talking about that. And this was at the end of a game that they had won, I believe, right at the buzzer. And it was the first time since he had been playing that we actually saw him let some emotion out and celebrate with his teammates. It was a pretty cool moment.
That is an awesome moment. And I know that Lisa, your wife, drops these little reminders in his shoes, and she's constantly talking about the person.
Yeah, she is. Lisa's great about writing little notes like that and dropping it in their lunch or putting it in places where they'll just happen upon it. And
I got to show you, I think that the inner circle, you guys have done such a great job. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was a flood for a while.
Yeah.
And it was, can you talk about the challenges there?
Yeah.
I mean, can we talk about it?
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
let's talk about it. So like there were agent runners that would come to gyms. Like think about that. Mm-hmm. That's a tough spot to be in. So the conversations that you had were centered around the inner circle. What are you trying to do there?
Well, what I'm trying to do is just, it's unfortunate, but I have to try to teach him that not everyone who approaches him like that has his best interest at heart, just with what it looks like his future might be. He's got to be really careful about the friends that he makes, the people that he surrounds himself with. And so what we try to do, and again, after a lot of conversation with Brett and some other folks, is just shrink his inner circle, just keep his circle. And what we mean by inner circle is the people who have influence in your life. Keep it small.
And they're all centered on who he is as a person.
Exactly.
And I think what happens a lot of times for athletes this age is they come across a lot of conditional relationships, meaning they experience love when they play good and they don't when they play bad, and that becomes their value system. And I think it's been unbelievable just how you guys have maintained that core. And this is one of my favorite. This is awesome. They have a tropical snow. Am I getting the branding right there?
No.
What's the branding? Is that your competitor?
No, I don't know.
Oh, because we have a tropical snow.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's called Snowy, and it's just a little shaved ice stand that we started to, for a couple reasons, to, again, teach our kids life lessons, give them something to do in the summer. We started finding out they wanted to work and earn money, but summers were so busy they couldn't work like at Burger King or something. Just they needed customized hours, and so yeah, we invested in this whole thing, and our kids run it during the summer, and And it's cool too because it's taught them, well, our kids were homeschooled. We homeschooled them up until 8th or 9th grade. So they didn't have a ton of interaction unless it was sports with other people. This has been great because they've had to actually talk to people and listen to people and solve problems. And so, yeah, this has been all our kids work there except for the little ones. And yeah, it's been awesome.
And what a great way to teach service. And so what I would recommend is we're going to bring Billy out here, but right after Billy gets done talking, we have lunch. And I would encourage you guys to talk with Michael just about how he's dealing with the recruitment process, all of these different things. If you have questions, can you make yourself available? Is that too much?
Absolutely, man.
Perfect. So
Absolutely.
we'll just be around here hanging out, and you guys are more than welcome to come up and talk to him. Sound good? Let's give him a hand. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. Thank you, man. You got it, man.